This is the co-host, and today we are going to talk about one of America's most famous hauntings, the Phantom of the Bell Witch. Now, in the 1800s, there were many different types of ghosts and spirits that people believed could be haunting them, and one of the most terrifying ones was that of the witch, the Phantom Witch, or the Bell Witch. Now, this story comes from Tennessee, and it began in the early 1800s with a man named John Bell and his family. Now, their farm was isolated. It was deep in the woods, and they were very much alone. And apparently, John had a great deal of money, and he was living the life of leisure. He wasn't working the farm himself, so he just hired other people to do it for him. But this isolation would soon come back to bite them because it seems like something evil was stalking them in these woods. It started off pretty subtly. John and his family began to hear chains dragging metal moans and groans, and this was all supposedly happening outside their house. And then strange things began to happen inside the home, and this is when they realized that something was seriously wrong here. John's daughter, Betsy, was the first to see the spirit. She was sitting in her room doing some sewing when she saw a woman who was dressed in gray. This apparition walked right through her, and then she disappeared. Then another daughter came into the room. She had been out gathering herbs and flowers, and Betsy told her what she had seen. She said, "I know what that is. That is the witch." She knew that this was the witch that had been tormenting them, and she claimed that it was the ghost of an old woman who had lived on their property years ago. Then more apparitions started showing up. There was a tall, gaunt, ghastly-looking man that would walk the halls. And then there were strange black spots that began appearing all around the house. These were like mysterious bruises that were left on their bodies. And sometimes they would wake up with scratches and marks that didn't seem to have any explanation. And even though all of this was happening, none of the townspeople really seemed to believe the girls when they talked about the haunting. They thought it was all nonsense and that it was made up. But then, tragically, John Bell passed away while having dinner. And apparently he choked to death after he put on a pair of his metal dentures, and they believed that the witch had actually killed him. And at his funeral, they even heard chains being dragged once again. Now, John was buried near his home, but not too long after, his grave was desecrated. They found it had been dug up, and his body was missing, and despite the fact that he had been buried in a coffin, they didn't find any bones either. So whatever had taken his body had completely evaporated it. After this, the haunting seemed to go away for a while, and a new person moved into the Bell family home, a man named James Johnston. But sadly, the witch came back to finish the job. She went after his son, and she did the same thing to him that she had done to John. She haunted him and tormented him until he choked to death. And once again, the townspeople didn't believe him when he talked about the witch haunting him. But once he passed away, they finally took him seriously. Now, the witch's presence grew stronger, and it seemed to attach itself to another young boy in the home. And over time, the entity became known as the Bell Witch, and it would continue to grow in power. And even to this day, it's considered to be one of America's most powerful ghosts. It grew so strong that it could move objects, shake beds, slam doors. It would walk around the house making regular nightly appearances, and it also used a disembodied voice to speak to the family members and taunt them. Sometimes it would even reveal itself and interact with the family members, and these encounters often left visible marks on those it touched. And its taunts weren't subtle either. They were very direct and very threatening. The witch would call out the family members by name, threaten them and warn them that they were next, and it kept coming after the family even after they tried to leave. You see, the family tried to flee from the witch. They couldn't take it anymore, so they tried to flee from it. But no matter where they went, the witch followed them. If they went to the basement, the witch would crawl through the walls and stand over them. If they hid under the beds, the witch would shake the bed until they came out. And if they locked themselves in rooms, the witch would turn the keys and walk in anyway. And that's how they knew it was truly cursed. Now, this haunting continued for years, and it led to many different theories. Some believed that it wasn't a witch at all. Instead, it was a demon that had become attached to the property. Others believed that it was the ghost of Kate Batts, an old woman who had lived on the property. And she had treated the family very badly, so she wanted to haunt them after she passed away. But the most popular legend claims that it was the ghost of a Native American woman who had been scalped and killed by John Bell. Apparently, the Bell family had arrived on the property after the Native Americans had been forced off it, and the woman was seeking revenge for her people. And over time, the legends only grew. People began telling stories about the witch putting entire families to death, attacking travelers, and even causing livestock to drop dead. In 1979, an author named Brent Monahan wrote a book about the haunting, and it helped spread the legend all across the country. And now it's widely regarded as one of America's most famous hauntings, but some say that it's still happening. To this day, the Bell Witch continues to be active in the woods of Adams, Tennessee, and paranormal investigators have traveled from all across the country just to try and document its presence, and they've come across some pretty incredible evidence. In October of 2014, they conducted an investigation in the woods, and they recorded what they believed was the ghost of the Bell Witch herself. And even though it may not sound like much, I will tell you that even hearing the audio, it's very creepy, and it's available for you to listen to online. Now, they aren't the only ones who have heard this, by the way. Local residents report hearing voices in the woods, and some say they've even witnessed apparitions. But the question is, should you travel to this area and try to witness it for yourself? Well, maybe not. Most of the hauntings seem to be occurring in the woods and the surrounding areas. And there is a cemetery nearby that contains some of the Bell family members' remains, and this is considered to be a very haunted place. If you want to visit, though, you might be out of luck. You see, the Bell Witch has remained in the public consciousness for quite some time, and it's inspired countless urban legends and horror stories. There are even 2 different films about the witch and a 3rd one currently in production. And because of all this popularity, the alleged haunting site is now privately owned, and it's illegal to trespass on the land. So you can't just wander around the woods and hope to encounter the ghost of the Bell Witch. Now, I don't know about you, but I would love to be able to experience this haunting for myself. I love ghosts and the supernatural. I love hearing the stories behind them and trying to figure out exactly what happened. And although it sounds scary, I think it would also be really cool. But what about you? Do you believe in the Bell Witch? Is the Bell Witch haunting real? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'm your host. And until next time, stay safe. Make a wish upon a falling star, and remember, some things are better left buried.